I think if you are anything less than absolutely distraught, you are happy. You're a version of happy. It's like saying gray is a version of black, right? No matter how light the gray is, you can still call it a version of black. And unless you've gone through an event, which hopefully doesn't happen too often, like the passing of a family member or something that's truly destructive and detrimental to your mindset, besides these events, which hopefully only happen a few times in your life, you should be happy. If you're not crying or paralyzed in silence due to the absolute magnitude of a detrimental circumstance or the absolute magnitude of a negative event, then you are a version of happy. So I am always happy is the short answer. I don't believe in not being happy. I don't believe in not saying to myself I'm happy. I'm always a version of happy. And this idea of chasing happiness and always being concerned and preoccupied with how happy you are is actually the biggest mistake that a lot of people make, I think, in the world today, especially men who wake up and go, I don't really feel happy, so I need to get happier. And that's how they end up down a hedonistic path of drugs or alcohol or gambling, chasing pleasure. I don't care how I feel. I don't care if I feel happy or sad. It doesn't really affect what I do each day. I do the exact same things. I act the exact same way. I don't care. I don't put weight to the significance of the emotion. So I always consider myself a happy person, but if I woke up and I was slightly less happy one day than another, it wouldn't affect anything I do, and I wouldn't put any relevance to it. I'm human, and that's life. And so am I any happier now that I have hundreds of millions of dollars than before I was broke? Not really, but I was never unhappy. I'm the same state that I was then, that I am now. I have work to do, and I will do it. It's as simple as that.
Very well put. No, but you're right, definitely. I've heard like the chase for happiness, and the more you try to seek happiness, the more you enforce in yourself that you're not happy.
Well, also there's no light without dark, and there's no joy without pain. You can't have a rainbow without a little rain.
Exactly.
And no matter how hard you chase pleasure and happiness, there's going to be dips and troughs in between. There's going to be come downs and downtrends, and you're going to have the juxtaposition between that time you were laughing your head off and acting giddish like a child and the time that you feel depressed as such. And I think it's much better to just adopt a very disciplined, stoic mindset. I'm always the same base level of happy regardless. If I lost all of my money today, I would be the same happy. If my net worth quadrupled, I'd be the same happiness. As long as I'm alive, which is a struggle, unfortunately, in the current climate, but as long as I'm alive and the people I care about and love are alive, and as long as God gives me the honor of doing my duties and providing for the people I care about, as long as I get to wake up and know that there's a whole bunch of people in the world who need me, and I get to work hard to please them and do good for society and good for the world, then I'm a vessel of God, and I'm happy enough to survive. That's all I look at it as. I don't ever consider how do I feel. That doesn't cross my mind. I have things to do. I have things to do.
You're too busy to think about that.
I'm too busy. I have things to do every single day. I have very important things to do, and how I feel really is not going to affect how I complete those tasks.
Right.
And when I speak to men, they say I'm unhappy or I need to be happier. I think that's absolutely the wrong frame of life. You're a man, you have duty, you have honor, you have things you should be doing regardless of how you feel. And the people who are perma-obsessed with happiness or sadness, I just think it's the wrong paradigm to view the lens of life. I think you should get up and do what needs to be done.
Man. You're a positive influence, man. I don't know what's all the stuff, man. You're just reinforcing positivity in people.
I'm absolutely a positive influence, and that's the problem. The key word there is influence. The reason the Matrix has attacked me is because of that. It's because I am an influence. And when
they don't like influence.
They don't like influence because I've not sold my soul. They don't control me. And normally when you become massively influential, they control you. You either sign a contract, or your sponsor, or your manager,
a record label,
whatever. They have some kind of leverage over you to make sure you only say what you are supposed to say. I'm an individual which they do not control. I have mass influence over the population of Earth. And when you have somebody like me who is principled, who has morals, who believes in God, who will not sell their soul, will not promote degeneracy, who also has mass influence, they see me as a threat because they say there are certain agendas which he will not promote because of his morality. And we need immoral people who have sold their souls absolutely and completely, so they'll enforce the slave programming amongst the population. So they see me as a threat because of my mass influence. And me being positive in and of itself is also a threat to the establishment because they don't want people to be happy. They want you to be semi-depressed and sad and miserable, because when you're sad, you're self-obsessed.
And you're distracted.
you're distracted and you're self-obsessed. When you're sad, you're sitting at home, me. It makes you very selfish. You don't care about your community when you're sad. You don't care about your country when you're sad. You don't care about the injustices of the world when you're sad. You don't care about trying to actually go and make the world a better place because you're too busy thinking about yourself. So they want you miserable, semi-depressed, sad, unhappy, so that you can sit at home and accept them doing whatever they want to the planet and other people without ever talking or standing up or doing the right thing. If you're happy and motivated, you're going to be far more likely to fight against injustices. So the fact that I have mass influence and I can just make people feel better is a threat to them. They don't want me to make people feel better. They talk about men's mental health and pretend to care, but when I come along and genuinely help and stop people from committing suicide, they delete me. They don't want that. They want everybody semi-depressed. They want you miserable. They want you distracted so that you're too busy crying your eyes out in a room somewhere or sitting in deep thought, worrying about this girl who left you so they can just continue to run the world.
Yeah, because if you're thinking about yourself, you're not thinking about the new rules that are going out or the new stuff that's going on. But
you're not thinking about the work of the devil, which is what's happening right now. We're currently in a fight of good versus evil. It's genuinely that serious. This is whether it's the Bible or the Quran or any superhero movie, this is the battle of good versus evil. And anybody who's sitting who doesn't see that every armed conflict on the planet, the conflict for our minds, the way the Matrix is attempting to control us, this is genuinely a battle of God versus Satan. And if you think that you can just sit idly by while these two titans go to war and you're not going to end up caught up in the crossfire, then you're absolutely and utterly ignorant at best, a coward at worst, and I think it's most likely cowardice. We're in the middle of the greatest battle that humankind has ever faced, and unless people stand up and actually try and fight hard for good and for God, then we're going to end up in absolute tyrannical slavery.
Yeah. You know, while you're talking right now, it's just making me think. The way you talk, it's like really articulate. It's like really intriguing, and you're well informed on many different topics. So were you always like this? And like, how did you build this? Like, did you read books or, you know what I mean? How did you become so well informed on everything? How did you talk so articulately?
Good question. I don't read books. I'm actually famous for saying I've read one book in my life. In my adult life, I've read one book. And I was in a jail cell, so I had nothing else to do. So I don't read books.
Which book was it?
It was an awful book. I think it was called, I can't remember the name of it. I've told this story before and someone found it in the comments, but it was a terrible story about a UN negotiator, a woman who was in New York, and she had been fired from the UN because she made this big mistake. And then the UN needed her back because she was the best negotiator.
Yeah.
And they got her back, and they kept talking about, I wish I didn't make the big mistake. And for 2/3 of the book, it's like she's so good at her job, but what was this big mistake? And it turns out she was negotiating between two African warlord tribes, and she ended up sleeping with one of the warlords. And when you get this big revelation, you're like, oh, so you're just a warlord in the middle of a negotiation? Like, how did that even happen? What
you were so interested and then you just realized,
like, how charming was this guy? He's a mass murderer. Like, the whole book, it upset me. So no, I don't read books because books are slow, and I think the world we now live in today is about speed. Speed is absolutely and utterly important.
Everything must be like this.
Absolutely, and everything must be done as quickly as possible. And Darwin said it, even though I'm not a proponent of evolution, he said it's the most adaptable member of the species that survives. I will change it and say nowadays the quickest member of the species survives. It's not about being the biggest or the strongest, it's about being the quickest, the most adaptable to change. And to read a book is just too many human hours for the amount of information and knowledge you get. So I don't read books. I think they're slow. I think they're a waste of time. I think a lot of it's mental masturbation for people to sit there and say, I want to get smarter, so I read books. And I talk to these people, they're not even smart.
Yeah.
I know everything about everything because of my life. Yeah. It's been varied and it's been very difficult, and I'm perspicacious and I pay attention and I learn my lessons, and that's how I know everything about everything. I don't need to read books. There's not a subject you can name right now where I don't know something about.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, you name it. The Korean War, anything. You name it, I know something about something. That's just what happens when you get to a certain level of intelligence, because you can apply scenarios and
patterns. It's all patterns.
It's all patterns, absolutely. And history may not repeat, but it certainly rhymes, and humanity all acts in a pretty similar way across all cultures. And once you get an X amount of knowledge in one place, you can basically apply it and extrapolate it out to anything.
No, and you're right about the reading books thing. A lot of people, there's like this new, like basically they become like self-help junkies, where they're just trying to seek self-help books, and they think to themselves like, I'm doing something productive because I'm reading a book. But actually you have so much work that you could actually do to actually like implement what the book says, you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is with reading a book is it's a reward without any risk. And this is why I think a lot of people are proponents of reading, and they say reading, because nothing can really go wrong besides wasting your time in life, of course, but they don't believe that. I am a much larger proponent of larger risks and larger rewards. If you want to learn about self-help, if you want to understand yourself and see what kind of man you really are, and learn how to fight through adversity, and learn how to get up when life's difficult, and learn how to control your mind, and learn how to struggle, then you can go to the boxing gym.